Reggie Middleton, back in Lagos, Nigeria. I love it here. This is a very, very fertile ground for economic growth. This trip, I'm bringing gold back to the motherland, back to Africa. What we do is peer-to-peer capital markets. So to explain that, let's go through what traditional capital markets are in developed nations. You have a central bank, which is a hub. Around that central bank, you have money center banks. In the US, that would be Citibank, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, et cetera. And around money center banks, you have exchanges, then you have national banks, regional banks, retail, mom and pop stores, et cetera. We do peer-to-peer capital markets, where instead of going from the hub where it has the power and it goes out in concentric circles, we give everybody the ability to be their own institution. So you could do business with her directly without the middleman, and she could do business directly with somebody else. Think of the big circle, the central bank, and the concentric banks going around concentric circles, where the power is here, centralized, and moving itself outward, compared to a bunch of dots all over this room. And each and every dot represents a person or institution, and they could do business with each other directly. That scares the current legacy holders of power significantly, because it's a material change. That change is enabled by technology. So the reason why I'm presuming, the reason why a lot of these institutions and large players and small retail players are worried is because it's changed, and the change is represented by technology. But if you take a look at history, technology has never, ever put a business, a company out of business. It's never destroyed the industry. It hasn't happened once. What actually happens is technology enables a new business model, and that new business model compresses the margins of these companies, then they go out of business. Recent examples would be Google and the media companies. Okay, Google's put many media companies out of business. When was the last time someone looked at a piece of paper for the classified ads? Or when was the last time you bought a vinyl record or a cassette tape? The reason why this didn't happen is because technology enabled a new business model. So the same thing's happening in the financial industry. What we're doing is, we're looking to educate, to teach that you shouldn't be afraid of technology and you should embrace the new business model. An example, and I'll give 3 quick use cases. An example of how these business models make a big, big difference is I have a film crew here that worked at The Guardian. One of the cameramen, I'll point him out right back there, I gave him a piece of digital gold in August, the last time I was here. The Naira to US dollar exchange rate was 330 Naira to 1 US dollar. Okay, the reason why we use digital gold, and we digitize the gold by using the same technology, we take physical gold, and I actually brought up, this is a kilogram of gold right here. Okay, we take physical gold, we use the technology to digitize it, we put it on the blockchain, and then we'll enable people to send the gold back and forth through their cell phones or computers. I gave them a gold at the 330 to $1 exchange rate. I came back 3 months later. The Naira is now 364 to $1. He made over a 10% yield by holding his capital in digital gold versus the Naira. Okay, he did it without using a bank, a savings account, a mutual fund, or exchange. He can take that digital gold, he can send it to anybody in this room. He can sell it, pledge it, use it as collateral for loan, etc. That's very powerful. Second use case, I went into the hotel. I didn't have local Naira on me. I didn't have small US dollar bills. I've decided to tip them all in digital gold. They were very, very excited. Okay, so again, they learned to use the technology. You take your phone, you go to a web page, you follow directions, you push your button to buy. Okay, the staff goes from the executives and the business manager all the way down to the janitors. Okay, this is a significant way of being financially inclusive because the technology has 18 decimals of granularity. To put this in perspective, the US dollar has 2 decimals. You could get $5 or $5.50. With the gold, you could go $5 plus 1.1234567 So we could do 1/2 Naira at a time in terms of transfer value. That means everybody can use the exact same system, from the people who live under the highway to the people who own the multi-billion-dollar companies that drive the trucks over the highway. All use the same system. So there's no such thing as retail and institutional, high net worth or low net worth. Everybody uses the same information highway, which is now a value highway. Thank you. I just wanted to respond. I'll try and keep it short. So your example of Blockbuster, proves my point perfectly. Blockbuster had access to the internet, and everybody that worked in Blockbuster had access to the internet. So everybody had the same technology. It is not the technology that put Blockbuster out of business. What put Blockbuster out of business was its business model. It used brick and mortar stores, which had a significant expense. It used physical delivery of the media, which is a physical expense. That took away from the revenues. They had to compete with Amazon and Netflix that streamed the media using the technology. So they used the technology, they compressed margins, but they had many more viewers at a smaller margin compared to Blockbuster, who had a small amount of viewers at a larger margin. But when you take the expense out of physical cassette tapes, the rent, the employees, Blockbuster couldn't compete. It is always going to be the business model. The challenge to exchanges and the challenges to banks, again, are not going to be it's not going to be the technology, it's going to be the business model. The example I gave, where everybody could do business directly with each other, can be perceived as a threat to banks, but it's also an opportunity if you change your business model. The reason why Blockbuster is gone and Netflix is big, business model. From our perspective, this is a time when you do have to differentiate between retail and institutional, so I'm going to give a bifurcated answer. So on the larger side, the institutional, we're looking to partner with exchanges, family offices, pools of capital to entice outside capital to come in. Family offices in Americas, Europe, Asia, hedge funds, and to put money in a project such as an infrastructure project. Infrastructure project that would be funded by a high-style ICO that would basically create a tokenized bond program to finance a lightweight monorail that connects Abuja and Lagos. One of the biggest issues I've seen coming here from the outside is infrastructure. There's a lot of traffic, not because there's really that many people, but the roads are not in good condition. When you do an infrastructure project, you're stuck with it for a while, so instead of expanding the roads, you could create a public transportation system, such as a monorail. That monorail would be funded through token offering, and that monorail would be able to monetize many parts of Nigeria and Lagos and Abuja that are currently not contemplated. For instance, the monorail can charge a fare. The monorail will increase the value of real estate everywhere between Lagos and Abuja, and you would have a different risk-reward compensation system for the institutions. They could get an interest rate, say 7% nominal. They get revenue sharing, and they get the opportunity to participate in an increase in the real estate value. This attracts a new set of capital and a very interesting set of capital from all over the world directly to Nigeria, FDI, foreign direct investment. On the other side, we have the retail, we have the unbanked, underbanked, et cetera, using an example like the digital gold that we explained. And I would love to address the shortcomings, but we don't have time here. But from the education perspective, I think that everybody on the retail side, regardless of your net worth, needs to look at the economic situation from a macro perspective, a global macro perspective. A lot of people feel that they're insulated from the gyrations of the Naira, but you're not. Those who can afford to do business outside Nigeria feel the US dollar strength to the Naira. But those who only do business within Nigeria also feel it. For instance, the price of sugar goes up significantly. Okay, the price of a lot of commodities and goods go up significantly because they're priced in the reserve currency, the US dollar. Okay, but a lot of the people who buy retail don't necessarily think of it in that terms. They just feel like they're getting poorer. So understanding that global perspective, right, goes a long way, and it helps them choose their investments. And when they go to the investments, they usually get these investments from products that go through the exchanges, such as the Nigerian Stock Exchange, the Nigerian Stock Exchange, etc. Most people's perception of a bank is historical. They think of a bank as a big building with marble walls. In 2019, a bank is a data company. It stores data. This bar of gold used to be what backed the US dollar. Okay, in 1973, Bretton Woods, during the Nixon administration, they came off the gold standard, and the US dollar is now a fiat currency, basically belief in the US's ability to back the dollar. From that point, almost 93 to 97% of all the money is digital. Right now, if I ask everybody to raise their hand, is the majority of your wealth, monetary wealth, is it digital, or do you have actual Naira or shillings in your pocket? So raise your hand if most of your wealth is in your pocket. Now, either everybody's ignoring me or most of your money is already digital. If most of your money is already digital, then the entire banking system is data and moving data, ones and zeros from left to right. Same thing with exchanges, same thing with insurance companies. That's what value is today. So MTN applying for a banking license is simply the changing of the business model and a challenge to this man's current industry or merging the industry. When you look at it from that perspective, you see the next generation of financial services from a totally different perspective. The SEC's problem with most of the Bitcoin applications have to do with price discovery. Remember I explained the centralized network, central bank, monetary banks, etc., versus peer-to-peer networks. Bitcoin was created to be peer-to-peer. They're trying to force it from a peer-to-peer network into a centralized network. When you do that, you don't have the same price discovery mechanisms that you do in a centralized platform. Each, what is called an exchange, is not really an exchange in the Bitcoin world. They're really broker-dealers. And this is a US regulatory technical definition. They're Coinbase and Kraken and et cetera, et cetera. Each exchange is its own island of liquidity. So when the applicants thus far have went for the Bitcoin ETF, they say we're going to create the price index, we're going to do clearing, et cetera. The first 3 rejections had to do with the fact that the same or similar entities did the pricing, they created the index, they did the clearing, and the SEC said, I'm not going to opine on whether they're correct or not. The SEC said that that wasn't safe. It wasn't adequate to protect the investors because you don't really have centralized price discovery. Let's contrast that to the Nigerian Stock Exchange or the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. If you go to the US, the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, when you buy IBM, you buy it out of a large pool of liquidity. Okay, and every quote is based upon that large pool. When you go and buy Bitcoin, the price could be different at Coinbase than it is at Kraken, than it is at Circle. As a matter of fact, it is different. Sometimes those differences are significant. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that from a fundamental or economic perspective, but it is not that centralized pool of liquidity. So what the players did was they created an index, and that index is an approximation of pricing, but it's not the actual price. That was the problem. I speak to regulators weekly almost because we're creating a broker-dealer based upon a public blockchain, which is a sea change, a vast difference from what everybody's used to in the US and abroad. The reason we're doing that is because contrary to what you see in the media, the blockchain gives more transparency and more auditability than any financial system that exists right now in the world, bar none. Okay, but it is different. That difference leads to blockbusterization. It leads to the Polaroid camera. It leads to the Xerox machine. So this technology is not that different. Everybody has access to the blockchain, but when it causes a change in the business model, somebody's going out of business, but new industries are created. And that lack of understanding and the lack of filing in a way that the SEC can understand ends up in the rejections that you were discussing. Did I answer your question completely? Okay.
Digitized gold.
Digitized gold, yes, hope. Digitized gold, right?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Cheers.
Reggie, can I have you one of these?
Excuse me?
Can I have you one of these?
You like to hold one? You want to write? Be my guest.
All right. Let's do this, ladies and gentlemen. We were shot
Well done, well done. I think it was more interactive this time and it allowed you to extol the virtues of the product.
Yes. Yes.
It was good, well engaged.
Thank you.
So this, you're supposed to meet up with him later.
Okay.
So you guys have met officially.
I told her that
Okay.
specifically asked after her.
Thank you.
Can you hold one of these two for me? Got both my hands full.
Yeah.
Yes, excuse me?
Well
Thank
done.
you.
Nice
Appreciate it.
to meet
Thank
Yes.
you.
So I'll
Thank you.
speak to you.
Yes, ma'am.
You have all my details.
Yeah,
so
are
you
you
Look
guys-
hard,
going to stay
yes.
for lunch with us? Are you coming back for lunch?
I just came in this morning.
Okay, I know that. Okay, so we'll see you
for
then.
inspection, the broker dealer.
Dinner is
Good.
fine.
Okay, we'll see you later.
So
Good to see
I'll
you. It was
engage
a
you
good
later
panel.
in respect to
Very good.
Okay.